and welcome back to the start of another weekly vlog. I am, per usual, very excited to be doing this one with you because I have a couple of interesting books that I would like to read before the end of May. We are currently at today is Tuesday, May 21st, and I have read a decent amount for this month already, but I had a few books on my TBR that I really wanted to try to get through, and I think that they are going to take me a little bit longer to complete than a normal book for me. Normal as in, I guess let me reword that. So if I'm reading a lot of romance or fantasy, I tend to read through books like that pretty quickly, but as part of my reading journey this year, I have wanted to read more literary fiction novels or like contemporary fiction, also translated novels, and I just so happen to be ready to read both. I am finally going to start Butter by Asako Yuzuki, and I haven't even started this at all yet. I ordered this from Waterstones. I saw the Waterstones cover and I was like, I need that in my life. Not today, but yesterday. So I waited for this to get delivered and kind of wanted to finish up again some other things I had on my list for the month so that I could give some undivided attention to this story. So what I have heard about this thus far from friends, acquaintances, and other booktubers or on Bookstagram, this has some mixed reviews, and I think it's a little unsettling and triggering, depending on what you find triggering. Of course, that is always a very subjective thing for those of us that read. Some people can read things without feeling triggered by anything at all. We can read lots of different genres, things that don't really upset us or bother us. I do happen to be kind of a sensitive reader. Not so much about triggers necessarily, like personal triggers, but content in books can sometimes be iffy for me. So I will be curious to see how I feel about this. But again, this is not just a fiction novel, but a translated novel, and I wanted to give my undivided attention to it. Not really trying to read this in tandem with something like a fantasy book where I'm also trying to absorb world building and characters and plot lines on top of something that might need my undivided attention. And so just to give you a quick synopsis, because I don't know a ton about this book either, but I did read the inside cover again and thought that just the small blurb at the bottom would be enough for us to kind of hit the ground running for this week's vlog together. A runaway international bestseller inspired by the real case of the con woman known as the Kankatsu Killer. Asako Yuzuki's Butter, translated by Polly Barton, is a vivid, unsettling exploration of misogyny, obsession, romance, and the transgressive pleasures of food in Japan. Asterisk on that last part. So I know that this follows a character who is in prison because she is a serial killer who apparently used to seduce men by her cooking. It was so good that she would kind of like draw them in and then kill them, I guess, is what I'm understanding. And it's kind of like taken the world by storm, or at least their nation by storm, but she refuses to do any type of interviews or kind of explain why she did the things that she did until a young journalist, a female journalist, reaches out to her just to get the recipe for something. And she decides she wants to start talking to this journalist. And it sounds like they might start forming a connection, and maybe she starts to relay exactly what brought her to do the things that she did. I have heard that there is some very grotesque descriptions and talk, and not just about her being a serial killer, but the weight and the importance that food has on the people of Japan, or like the Japanese culture. And I think probably very specifically on women, about how maintaining a certain diet, eating a certain way, to look a certain way, and the pressures that come behind that. So I imagine that is going to be a very heavy topic in this book, but I am kind of glad to know that ahead of time. I think that will help me mentally prepare, especially as, again, kind of a sensitive reader. Do those topics necessarily bother me? Not specifically, not that I haven't had my own issues with being a female in the world that we live in, but I don't think that that would necessarily bother me to read about. I am a little more concerned about any type of over explanation of the serial killer side of things. So we shall see exactly how that plays out. I'm trying to be a much more open-minded reader this year. I don't necessarily love grotesque and horror things, but I do kind of dig weird things. Like, I'm a weird girl. Like, I was kind of a weird girl when I was in middle school. I think I liked things that people thought were quote unquote weird. And I kind of carried some of those traits with me into adulthood. You know what? No shame in my game. So weird does not necessarily bother me. Again, grotesque is kind of more what is hard for me to swallow sometimes. But I am curious to see, now that I've kind of been reading so much more and opened my mind to reading lots of different genres and maybe some different topics within fiction novels, how I will retain and absorb this information. And I am very excited. So I'm coming to you from end of my workday, but it made me think really quick because this week I have some stuff coming in the mail to try to revamp my work office slash editing office setup. So right now, I don't think I've ever even shown this on camera, but so this is my work desk, which is a $100 IKEA work desk that I got years and years ago when I started working from home. And this girl, let me tell you, she's not done me bad. She has not done me dirty. This girl has been with me for a hot minute, and I have always enjoyed her. But what I have done different was not buy a desk with drawers, because I like to sit crisscross applesauce in my chair, and I can't scooch all the way up to my chair. The desk space itself is not necessarily ideal because it's not super wide, and I use dual monitors. I have a laptop dock. I just have other like accessories that I need to keep on the desk, like obviously my books, but my notepads, pens, highlighters, all that jazz. And I can't really adjust the chair ever because of the drawers. Like, the chair will not go higher, and sitting any lower is actually, and this is going to make me sound ancient, ergonomically comfortable for me to do. So I ordered this really cool standing desk on Amazon, and it is supposed to be here tomorrow. I just got a notification that it shipped early, so it will be here tomorrow. Will my husband want me to wait to do things when he's available? Yes. Will I do that? No. I am probably going to start moving my office around without him being home, which might not be a good thing. I am going to take you guys on the journey with me of updating my office setup and also where I do my editing most of the time, because I find myself bouncing back and forth between here and the kitchen table. Honestly, I do my editing on my Mac, and it does not work with my dual monitors or my dock or anything like that. So then I have to move stuff back even further just to have my Mac here. And then again, I'm like, the ergonomics of it all is just not ideal. So I'm super excited to have a standing desk, something that will actually allow me to comfortably move it up and down, regardless of where the chair is at, and then also just stand. I really find it harder and harder to sit down for long periods of time or extended periods of time. So I'm really excited to have something that will allow me to kind of at least not be in like do you remember that meme, like that shrimp meme? That's me. Awful posture. Awful. I am that girl that will be like, why does my back hurt? Because I'm a gremlin. I sit like this and I type. So that is why I think a standing desk will actually be beneficial for me long term. Very long-winded intro. So excited to be starting another vlog with you guys, as always, and excited that you are here for the journey. With that being said, I am going to let you go now. I'm going to sit down and try to start this book, and I will check in with you guys when I have another update. All right, bye. Hi, friends. Quick update. Desk arrived. Super excited about this, and I have already started assembly. Like I said, was I going to wait for my husband? Absolutely not. I basically just dragged the box through the house by myself and cracked it open immediately and started putting it together. So this is me already semi starting the process and hopefully finishing it this afternoon. I really don't think this will take too long to put together. It's quite simple, which was described in the reviews about how the ease of assembly was one of the selling points behind this desk. So I am going to kind of chip away at this a little bit this afternoon in between some work stuff. And then I'm going to try to break down my current desk and get this kind of semi moved out of here and the other one put into place. Unless I start trying to put the other one on the other wall, like I thought maybe I wanted to. We'll play with that. We're going to play with that. Put a pin in it. We'll come back to it. Right now, assembly has started and breakdown of the current desk is about to begin. So I will keep you guys up to date. All right, bye.
How do I deal with what I'm feeling? Maybe I just don't. What you doing? I'm in ruins, all alone. I'm all alone, and I know nothing to do helps me forget about you. You just came out of the blue. If you only knew. Let's sit and have a cup of coffee. Let's go to a restaurant. Go to a field, pick up some strawberries. Then maybe let's fall in love. Sit and have a cup of coffee. Let's go to a restaurant. To a field, pick up some strawberries. Then maybe let's fall in love. Sit and have a cup of coffee. Let's go to a restaurant. To a field, pick up some strawberries. Then maybe let's fall in love. Deal with the feelings I feel when you come near me. All I can see is you and me together, building a future forever, loving till eternity. I see you, can't you see what you're doing to me? The way you got me, baby, it's like I can't even breathe. You're all that I need, and I know nothing to do helps me forget about you. You just came out of the blue. If you only knew.
All right, you guys. Well, here we have it. The final product, my brand new work desk. I am so excited about this. It is honestly phenomenal. I love it. It is just slightly bigger than the desk that I had before, and it makes a huge difference as far as the length and being able to fit my monitors and my laptop on the dock and any notepads or anything that I need. Also, obviously, the standing feature is just really cool and something I've never had before, and I really like it. I don't know. Well, time will tell. I'm going to obviously use it to work during the day, but also I think this is going to be amazing for editing. I ordered a laptop stand on Amazon that should be here tomorrow so that I can hopefully prop up my laptop on here, my Mac, and work from here as well for editing reasons. And yeah, I think I'm really, really gonna like it. I showed you kind of like a little sneak peek of the up and down, but honestly, it's super simple. Just, you can use the up and down arrows. You can even just push like what level you want the desk to go to. So we're at a 3 right now. I'm gonna push 2. And it just automatically lowers it to height number 2. I'm obsessed. I love it. I think it's amazing. I can't wait to put it to more use tomorrow and see what my final thoughts are. But yeah, there you go. Now I just have to clean up the office, and I think this one is going to go downstairs into the YouTube studio and be my little talking head desk. and kind of help with some YouTube videos from here on out. So this girl, she's treating me well. You know, we're not getting rid of her just yet. But all right, I will give you guys a reading update when I have one. Until then, bye! Well, hello friends, and I wanted to do a quick reading check-in on where I'm at with one of our books for this vlog, which is Butter by Asako Yuzuki, and I am actually really enjoying this so far. So the first day reading it, I felt it was kind of a challenge for me to get into, and I was a little worried. I was like, this is a very dry fiction. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fall into it, especially because I usually lean so fantasy heavy in what I like to read. And since I've been kind of dabbling back into more literary fiction, I definitely like, still from time to time, kind of like magical realism or just fiction that is like a very colorful or heavy story, something that I can really still get lost in, if you know what I mean. So the initial thoughts on this were, ooh, this is very slow and very dry, but now that I've kind of gotten a little bit into it, so I'm on page 153, chapter 6, I am really enjoying it. It's definitely different. It's unique to anything I've personally ever read before, and I like it for that reason. I can definitely see why there have been some hard or triggering things for very specific people. If you do have any history of eating disorders or food disorders or body dysmorphia or body image issues, this could be very triggering and very hard to read. I have personally had my own issues with my body image and my weight, but I almost find this very endearing to read, and I think almost a little empowering coming from where I'm at now, though. So I am going to say that I feel like I am truly in a place where I could read something like this. If you are not, check out some of the trigger warnings and maybe some description of what the trigger warnings could be for you. But let's back up a little bit. So I gave, I think, a brief description in the first check-in about what the book is even about. And I wanted to go into it not knowing too much because I was starting to see some mixed reviews online, and I wanted to kind of cut it off there and not let anything sway my opinion on what I was going to think about the book. So we follow our main character, Rika, who is a journalist for a company that is still very heavily driven by the ideals of men. She works for a men's magazine, actually. And with that being said, there's a lot of women that work at this company, but women are still not even allowed in the editorial room. And if they are working as journalists, their ideas are very much picked apart and very much broken down and kind of stepped over by higher ups in the company, which just happen to be mostly men. So Rika is already living in this world, this is like our current time. She's living in this world in Japan where things are still very heavily misogynistic in very certain circumstances, especially in the workforce. But not just that, about body image and the expectations that are put on women in this culture and what they need to look like, how they need to act, how they need to kind of still be almost like that perfect woman, so that perfect wife for families and that perfect mother, subservient still to their husbands, always making sure the home is taken care of, and always having like fresh cooked meals on the dinner table, and the importance of health and counting calories and making sure your weight doesn't go over a certain number. Very, very very heavy on the ideal image of a woman in this world. So again, trigger warnings, if those are things that are very hard for you to absorb, might not be the book for you. But again, also very eye-opening to read, especially because our main character is kind of starting to transform a little bit throughout this story. So as a journalist, she's always trying to chase leads or stories and find the next thing to write about. And she recalls that this woman that has been in prison for apparently murdering or having a hand in the death of 3 men that she dated, is in prison and she's coming up for a retrial, and Rika wanted to interview her. This woman is very, very adamant on never talking to the press. She does not like to be interviewed. She's never given her side of the story personally to a journalist or any kind of news or media outlet. And Rika is determined to try and get an interview with her. When she can't get even like her foot in the door at the visitor center to see this woman, her friend, who is very heavily involved in like the foodie world, suggests, hey, why don't you ask her for a recipe, because this woman who's in prison is actually a really big foodie. The whole story behind her is that she used to woo men with her amazing cooking abilities and then kind of somehow lead to their demise or their deaths. And she used to use men to like go to cooking school and pay for fancy cooking lessons and experience all sorts of fancy dinners and diners and stuff like that. So Rika reaches out to her and asks for a recipe, and the woman immediately responds to her and says, I want to talk to you, but I am talking to you only about food. So over the course of the story so far, Rika has kind of like been talking to this woman in prison, but not about her story so much. This woman is really just relaying information to her about food and her thoughts and feelings about food, and she is a diehard when it comes to cuisine and cooking and the importance of cooking delicious, authentic, true meals. And that's what this book really is. Like when it says on the cover, or it said somewhere like in the synopsis, this is a story about like food and murder. It is a book about food. Like the descriptions about food will make your mouth water. Like I'm reading this thinking to myself, why am I getting hungry? I've never read a book this like in depth descriptive about stuff like that before, about recipes, about how certain things taste, about how certain things will like feel on your palate and in your mouth and sliding down your throat. And also, as the book is aptly named, very specifically about butter and about how delicious butter is. And we all know how good butter actually is. But again, in this world, we are seeing this very specific type of society where women are constantly restrictive. They're working out all the time. They are counting their calories. They are not indulging in very specific types of food, low calorie stuff, only because they will refuse to let their body weight go over a certain number. So Rika is kind of getting her eyes opened to living a life of a little bit of indulgence and experiencing things and taking the time to really like enjoy things. And she's having this kind of transformative experience through this already. So I know that's like kind of vague, but I don't want to give too many details on the book because it is still such a new book. I'm trying to keep this like semi-spoiler free, but I want to press upon the point about what this story is really about. And it is heavily, heavily steeped in misogyny and the struggles that women in the society go through in their everyday lives, whether it's in the workforce and being made to feel guilty about wanting to be a working woman, or not providing enough for a man, or looking a certain way. It is so intense and, again, very eye-opening, and it almost just like makes you root for this character who's starting to experience life in a different way from everything that she's always been taught. And I am obsessed. Again, I wasn't sure at the beginning if I was gonna really enjoy this story, and now I am like fully into it, and I cannot wait to see where Rika goes and what happens, not just with her, but like this relationship that she's kind of building with this woman in prison who is actually very like kind of disconnected, kind of rude, and she very specifically doesn't like women. She has said that herself. She's like, I am actually a woman who loves to serve men, and I serve them with my body and with my food and my cooking, and I hate feminists above all things. Like, women like that are just completely ruining this world. So it's such an interesting dynamic because she is teaching Rika all of these things that she's never really thought through before. But Rika is also kind of a pretty strong woman, and she's coming from this position where she is working in the workforce as a woman in a heavily male dominated area and trying to better herself in the world. And it's really just like a very interesting dynamic. And again, the way that food can kind of help us learn and grow and feel and experience things, and it is so beautifully descriptive. I am kind of super into this book. So clearly, because I could sit here and probably talk to you for another 11 and a half minutes about what this book is without even telling you that much about what has happened in the book. How, I don't know, because I can just talk like that. But so far, like, I think this writing is just very, it's like the book itself is indulgent. You know what I mean? Like the story, because it's so descriptive and graphic. And I use the term graphic as in like, I need you to understand how you can like taste or smell something that they are writing about, because it's just that vivid in the writing. And I totally fall head over heels for books like that. I love them. I will love them every time. So basically, I'm telling you, I'm obsessed with this book. I can't wait to see what happens. And I am reading it a little bit slower. I am going to admit, I feel like it doesn't flow quite as quickly as reading other stories. So I am kind of just sitting with it and taking my time with it, but I'm really enjoying that time, and I don't want to rush myself through this story. I feel like there is some very, very important messages in here, and even just like I could see myself learning from this book, and I really want to kind of take it all in. So just wrapped up my work day. I am going to try to sit down and read a little bit more since work is done for the day before I have to start making dinner. And then again this afternoon, read a little bit more, even just a little bit at a time. Just chipping away, chipping my little heart out. You know, that's what I like to do. I will check in with you guys as soon as I have another update. All right, bye. Hello and good morning, my beautiful bookish friends. It is a very lovely, misty, foggy morning here in Michigan, and I am looking like a big hot mess now because I took the dog for his morning walk, and it was kind of like that very, like, it felt like it was raining, but it's not actually raining. It's just kind of the mist, and it's like damp. And now my hair is just a lost cause. So that's where we're at for today. That's how we're starting the day, nice and strong. But more importantly, we have to do our final check-in on butter. And I need to let you know what my final thoughts and opinions are on this book. Let me just lay it out. I'll just tell you straight up. I really liked this book. I really liked it. It is, the best way for me to describe it is a book about women. It's a book about women, about being a woman, and more specifically, being a woman in certain cultures or certain environments. So, very specifically, this is a Japanese story written about women in Japanese settings, but this is applicable, in my opinion, to just being a female in general. If you are a woman, you will relate to something in this book, regardless of the type of life that you have led. I just fully believe that. I think that's how this story is written. Again, please check trigger warnings on this book, because not only is it about being a woman in the workplace, like discrimination against women in workplaces, and especially in fields or areas that are still quite male dominated, but it is about what women are viewed as, like how they physically look and how food affects women as well. So if you have any history of issues with food or eating or body dysmorphia or body image, hi, hello, definitely placed in that category as well. I will say it can be a little hard to swallow some of that information in this book. I consider myself in a very good place at the moment to be able to read stuff like this, but there are some heavy things talked about in this story. But with all of that comes the transformation of the main character, so our protagonist in this book, and watching her grow from this kind of meek and mild woman who is a journalist, kind of fighting for stories and fighting for a voice, and getting like she kind of gets herself wrapped up in this whole interview process of interviewing the serial killer, but it's not technically about her case. It's just about food. But food is used as a vehicle for not just our protagonist to learn about herself, but to communicate with other people and to kind of just experience things and open her eyes to things. So she kind of just goes on this whole journey through the book, highs and lows, where she kind of starts again very meek and mild, and she's like, I have to stand up, I have to be strong, I have to fight for what I want at work and in my life. And she's kind of always just like accepted things as they are, like her relationship and her position at work. But now she is out there, like putting herself out there and fighting for what she fully deserves. She kind of gets manipulated a little bit by this woman that she is interviewing and spending all her time with. So she goes on her own journey through that as well, and then kind of starting to have her eyes open and see maybe how things have been twisted or turned in certain ways for her to view from this woman, and then kind of coming to light and seeing things finally from her own viewpoints and leading her to a different life than she started the story with. And I thought it was beautiful, again, transformative, to watch a woman go through very specific things and change not just herself, but her relationship with people in her life for good and what will benefit her in the future. I don't know, it was just very almost relatable. Again, you could, like at different points of our main character's journey, you could kind of find yourself relating to some things, whether it's like issues you've had yourself personally in the workplace, or just in general with some of her friends in her life, like some of the stuff that they were going through. You could find yourself relating to that as well. I will say the only downfall about this book was the density. Like, this book was about 100 pages too long, in my opinion. I think that there's a really fine line between descriptive books and books that are just overly full of words. That sounds really dumb the way I said that, but it I love description. I love to be put into an environment. I want to feel what these people are feeling. I want to smell it. I want to see it. I want to taste it. And you definitely get that with the description of food and environments in the story, but it's almost so much like there was so much depth and density to it that it just started to drag a little bit. And I was kind of just ready for the book to end. I wanted to see how our main character was going to kind of settle into her life and kind of just like bring things in for a landing, you know, like let's get to the point here. So I will say it is kind of a dense book. It's very heavy. I think like 450 pages. But these are like it's thick, like it's a dense book. So I do think that it could have maybe been edited down a little bit. That's just my personal opinion. But I really wanted to give my personal opinion and a vlog on this because I've seen such mixed reviews on this book and I could definitely see both sides of it. Again, very heavy topics in here and some triggering ones at that. So if that is hard to read, for some people, I could totally see that as well. And again, I don't know. I do think it just needed to be edited down a little bit and it would have been a little bit more enjoyable. It kind of felt like things started like kind of just like going off and like I'm like, are we starting another storyline? Are we gonna like this seems like this shouldn't be happening at this point in the book because I feel like we need to kind of start ending the book, if that makes sense. But other than that, I really, really did enjoy it. I am excited to see what else this author comes out with, and I think I will continue to read her stories. Yeah, but that is basically what my final thoughts and opinions on this book were. I think I rated it 4 stars. So it was between 3.5 and 4 stars, I believe. So a good rating on my scale of things. And I do highly recommend if you're looking for kind of, again, that transformative story, watching someone grow and learn. And if food is not a super triggering thing for you, you can find enjoyment in watching someone utilize food and cooking and senses to change their life and learn things about life. It was very kind of heartwarming in that sense. So I would definitely recommend it if you are into those types of stories. But with that being said, we are going to go ahead and end this vlog here. I am so thankful, as always, for you guys joining me on this journey. This has been a fun one, a little bit out of my comfort zone to read something like this, and I'm kind of in that mood right now. We're stepping into a new season. It is officially summertime. My mood reading has really kicked in where I'm just like grasping at books that I'm devouring anything that I feel like reading. And that to me is such a pleasure as a reader when you can just vibe. Like you just have an idea of what you want to read and you go and you grab it and you can't put that book down and then it's on to the next. And that's where I'm at in my reading journey right now. So I'm so thrilled to kind of be stepping into this new season and to be vlogging it along with you guys. If you would love to join this journey, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button because it always helps a girl out, and also hit that subscribe button so you can continue to see these weekly vlogs or any of my other videos that I put out, like my TBR videos and my monthly wrap-ups. And I usually throw in some book hauls and book unboxing videos in there as well. I would love to know if you have read this book or if this book is on your TBR, or if maybe you're going to be adding this book to your TBR because of this video. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in a comment down below. As always, it has been an absolute blast, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.